So many people, the minute we started filming this program, we said, you've got to film with Kate.
I was well behaved, I kept my head down, I was actually really shy, but inwardly, the noise was just, non-stop.
What are the children going through? Oh, when children have been diagnosed with ADHD, this is as hereditary as height. Why don't we screen you with 6 simple questions and see if it's likely?
So if we understand what RSD is, instead of us just being like, oh, overly sensitive and too emotional and all the things that we've been coined, we can understand how it shows up, what the triggers are.
It's exhausting, masking and not living authentically. It catches up with you.
There was nowhere for you to go, so you created somewhere for other women to go.
Yeah.
And 20 odd years ago when I started working in ADHD, there was no women with ADHD really. And here we are now.
We're not here to put on this mask and this persona to please other people. We're here to get the best out of our life. We're only here, for this short period of time. Use our potential. Let's step into who we're here to be and enjoy it, because so many people haven't been given that opportunity. The diagnosis is a key that unlocks that authentic version of you, which is what I do so much work on now.
Kate Moryoussef.
Hello.
Been looking forward to this.
Likewise.
So many people, the minute we started filming this program, we said, you've got to film with Kate. So thank you so much for coming. You've clearly helped so many, particularly women. I want to understand your own personal journey and then the journey behind ultimately helping so many people with your podcast, your books and all the things you've done.
Yeah, thank you. It all stems from my personal journey, and it continues to, because it's still growing and evolving and changing. But essentially, I was diagnosed 6 years ago with ADHD alongside my daughter in 2020, and we'd gone down all sorts of different routes trying to get her some help and support at school. She was 9 at the time. COVID. There was definitely something going on, I knew. And my 2 brothers actually were diagnosed with ADHD back in the late 80s, early 90s. They were very, very typical ADHD. And so I kind of knew what ADHD looked like in boys, definitely knew. And I was like, well, it's definitely not ADHD. Is it dyslexia? It's dyspraxia. There's something that she needs help with, but she also struggles with concentration and being able to focus and sit on a chair. Anyway, lots of digging. I was like, this girl has got ADHD, but I need to learn about ADHD in girls, because it was looking very likely like this was ADHD but in girls. And as I was reading the checklist and thinking, that sounds familiar, I recognize that. Oh my God, that's definitely me. Like so many people that I've spoken to, I realized that she was struggling, not just ADHD, there's definitely dyslexia there, but so much of it was how it presented as, in the different mutations and manifestations throughout my life. So that's where it all started from.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started from.
Yeah.
What's it?
Well, I knew it was there my whole life. I just didn't have the words for it. I didn't understand it, the language, anything. I always thought I was the normal one because my brothers were so tricky and outwardly challenging for teachers, my parents, people around, in social situations. It was so outward. It was so obvious. It was just kind of like they're very hyperactive and lovely and kind and sweet and sensitive and charismatic, but also very challenging. And they both got expelled from schools and asked to leave, and that's not me. I was a really good girl. I was quiet. I was well behaved. I kept my head down. I was actually really shy. Hated causing any form of fuss at all. So I was actually really easy for my parents. But inwardly, the noise was just not, non-stop. And I never even knew about anxiety. I just thought, I just worried a lot. There was a lot of things going on in my head. I was very fearful of people dying and just scared. I was scared the whole time. And then it just I just managed it. And I met my husband quite young, actually. And he been an amazing support and continues to be very sort of the scaffolding. And we've realized, how over time, how it's manifested for me, how it's shown up at different times of my life. I've got 4 kids. So I've had 4 pregnancies, births, post-birth, menopause, here now, perimenopause. And so it just shows up for women so differently at different times with all the different layers that as women we hold as well.
Where did you go when you started to want to get that information you alluded to earlier for your own kind of kids, let alone yourself, because ultimately you created your own resources and you got your own knowledge from the lived experience of lots of people.
Yeah.
But where did you go, and explain that sort of why, what was missing?
So originally I was like, oh my gosh, I need to know more. Googled it, obviously. There was some stuff coming up. Went on Facebook groups. And for me, that wasn't the place I needed. It was very negative. I couldn't relate to some of the stories because I didn't struggle in certain ways, or maybe I was just very, what you'd consider sort of like high functioning, which was overcompensating for all the internal struggles. But it just felt very negative. I thought, this is a life sentence. That's how it felt. It felt, oh my God, not only is this my life sentence, it's going to be my kids as well, because then I started seeing it in my kids. And I felt very fearful of this diagnosis. I felt terrified because there'd been extreme mental health challenges in my family in different generations. There'd been suicide, addiction, lots of different things. And I could feel the palpitations in my body. If I read this anymore, I would probably go down a very dark hole. I'm actually quite a naturally positive person. Like, I try and find the best in situations, and I really try and find the meaning or the lessons, or how can we make this, work for us. It's just my sort of natural disposition. I'm quite resourceful. And so I thought, well, I don't want that to be my resources. I want to be able to find things that are going to help me, because be damned if this is my kids' future and my future. And I knew I had a lot more potential, and I knew my kids have potential. But I'd also seen untapped potential in a lot of my family members. So then I pulled away from Facebook, and I was already podcasting anyway. So I already had a podcast that was kind of like an iteration of asking questions, why am I like this? So I was always been very naturally curious, quite philosophical, wanting to get into the depth of things. And I think it was kind of like the prequel to my podcast. So I wrapped that one up, thought, right, that's done and dusted. We need to start a new one. And that's what began the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. And I literally asked all the questions, got all the guests in, the experts, the topics that I wanted to know about. And I thought, I'm not the only person here who needs this information. So kind of, I've got some social media background and PR background. And I thought, right, I'm going to build the channel before the podcast starts. I'm going to build it on Instagram. And people were following, like, just, what's this podcast like?
That's what I wanted to ask you. So you had an instant audience, people crying out for help.
People were like,
answers.
when are you starting? When is this being aired? And I couldn't get it out quick enough. So I realised there was a definite need. It launched within a few weeks. Apple had picked it up, spotlighting it. It was just, people picked it up, podcast people on newspapers. It was, where's this been? Like, we need this information.
Well done, you.
And that's when it kind of is just growing, really.
Let's go into your journey a little bit, if we may. How did you get to your diagnosis? Because, as you've alluded to, you've got brothers who were tricky, I think was the word you used.
Yeah.
You weren't tricky. So how did you get to your diagnosis? Because the route could have been different.
Yeah, so academically, I definitely struggled. I also moved countries quite a bit. So things were blurred because I moved schools and countries and changed, different academic environments. So it was always like, oh, Kate's a bit behind because of this, or she's got to start a new school, or she's, learning in a different language, or she's got to do different exam, things. So it kind of got lost in the murkiness of just having a bit of a chaotic childhood, maybe you'd want to call it. But I knew I would read something and it wouldn't go in. I'd read it again, it still wouldn't go in. I would struggle, my handwriting was dreadful. I forgot to hand homework in. All the things where Kate just stopped chatting so much in class. Kate's a very enthusiastic member of the class, but, maybe she needs to concentrate more. No one picked it up. It wasn't, I wasn't naughty. I just really struggled to sit still and focus. I managed to scrape through university, and that's definitely impacted my self-worth, because I knew there was potential there. But but I really just struggled in that sort of very traditional academic sense. If I could just do what I wanted to do in the way I wanted to do it with all my autonomy, I can fly, hence the reason the podcast, the book. But yes, so in answer to your question, it showed up in lots of different ways in academia, but also from a mental health perspective. And actually, when I went to my GP, bearing in mind it was the middle of COVID, or the beginning, actually it was November of COVID, I was homeschooling 4 kids. My husband's business was struggling because everything had to change. It was a huge amount of pressure. I'd redoing my qualifications, trying to build my own business. It was a very, very stressful, overwhelming period. My GP said to me, you know, I just think it's a bit of anxiety, take some anxiety medication. But there was something in me that I knew this wasn't just a moment in time of anxiety. This was just the anxiety being ramped up that I'd felt for all my life. It wasn't like this is a new 6-week window. This was all my life feeling like this, but it was being amplified in this kind of, this moment in time. And so I didn't take the anxiety medication, and it all just came to a bit of a moment where my daughter was getting diagnosed. We both got diagnosed within 2 weeks of each other. I like to say that it was done privately because, you know, that was what we did at the time because of COVID. But in a way, I don't think I would have waited anyway. I think I needed that diagnosis there and then to really validate everything.
You needed the answers fast.
I really did need those answers fast, yeah.
One of the, as you were telling me your story, I said, she's going to tell me at some stage that a GP diagnosed her with anxiety and or depression, because that's every woman's story. And if we're talking about ADHD in women, we've got to get society to differentiate between that anxiety and actually the causation of that anxiety. And we have to get the diagnostic process within primary care to stop seeing a woman not coping, not happy. It's all anxiety, depression. We've actually got to get society and primary care start to think, I wonder if that could be caused by ADHD.
100%.
And ask the question, what are the children going through? Oh, when children have been diagnosed with ADHD, this is as hereditary as height. Why don't we screen you with 6 simple questions and see if it's likely to be? And we've got to get that change, systemic change. And, you know, we're on a journey through these TV programs and the subsequent podcast in the book, a journey of illumination on the art of change and the art of possible. And you're part of that, aren't you? You know, if you think about, there was nowhere for you to go, so you created somewhere for other women to go.
Yeah.
And 20 odd years ago when I started working in ADHD, there was no women with ADHD really. And here we are now. How can your work and our clinical work, do you think, support change for a woman with ADHD who does not know she's got ADHD?
Well, what I want to say about all of that is it's the hormones. So when you're saying, I mean, I've been advocating for years that GPs need to be assessing women, and like you say, those 6 questions: have you struggled with your cycles, with hormones, with mood fluctuations, with PMDD? Did your mum go through an early menopause? Did she struggle during her menopause? And that is when you start building a picture, because the hormones for me were always there as well. From puberty onwards, I really struggled with my mood, feeling low, those dips, but also postnatally as well. I just thought the only way through that was to walk miles and miles a day. Like, that was it. So I just walked with my kids miles and miles to help my mood, to help myself, because otherwise I would fall into that pit that so many women go through. So for me, it would always be hormones. Did you struggle with your hormones?
You've got 2 things going on there, haven't you? You've got undiagnosed ADHD, so you've got a dopamine problem.
Yeah.
Then you've got either connected to your period, loads of hormonal issues going on, or linked to post-pregnancy, loads of hormonal imbalance. So you've got a double whammy there, at least double, if not triple whammy of emotions. And to be able to differentiate what's being a woman and what's the ADHD, and then put them back together and say, what's it like to be a woman with ADHD, and getting that double whammy is what we're missing in traditional processes and traditional thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody. When we medically treat a woman who's having her period, we change her medication for the week of the significant hormone change to counterbalance what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because the impact of the period on the ADHD is more significant for 1 week out of 4. And traditional static line of medication doesn't allow that. So you lose 1 week of your ADHD.
Least.
You lose that. So you lose a quarter of your year from
least,
a new norm. And we're just not there with that common level of understanding. And you're articulating that from a non-medical perspective, but it actually reinforces that medical perspective that we've got to understand a woman's hormones more. And then if you've got a woman with ADHD, you're tapping on that double level, and you've got to do that more.
Yeah.
And what do you find is the most common thing in the women that you're working with? You talked about your anxiety. What's the most common co-occurring thing that you find for women with ADHD as a woman?
I'll go back to the hormones, always. It's they've gone through women's health, challenges, hormonal struggles, things like endometriosis, postnatal depression. Like I said, PMDD is so prevalent in the neurodivergent female community. It is always connected with something like that. When they go, yeah, and I've struggled with this and my executive functioning or my memory, but also actually weirdly that you say that, yeah, I have struggled with like fatigue or autoimmune issues, and I have struggled with chronic pain, or I've really struggled, 2 weeks out of my cycle where I can't get out of bed and I feel so low. And there's a picture. It's never just the ADHD. It's never, oh, I'm just a bit forgetful, or I've just got sort of, concentration issues. That is literally scratch beneath the surface. You go under and there's maybe eating disorders. There is mental health challenges, so many different things, skin picking, addiction. It's never migraines. I mean, honestly, gut problems. I don't think I've spoken to one ADHD woman that doesn't tick about 80% of those conditions that they've had to live with and they've been invalidated for and dismissed systematically, consistently by different health practitioners who don't connect the dots.
There's so much money being spent trying to solve something that's downriver.
The wrong problem.
So all those things you just mentioned all need treatment. They take up consultancy appointments and so on. And that person's trying to get help there. But it is clear from this conversation that if there was help given early from a diagnosis and an actual understanding side of things, you'd head that all off. Why does that sound so obvious?
It's really, there's a language thing that we use we in our academy. We have an academy to train clinicians, and co-occurring conditions we use as an alternative to comorbid conditions. The autistic element of ADHD, the word morbid, it is a finality. It's a death word. And although it's medically sound, it's not community sound as a word. So we move to co-occurring. But then working with Rebecca, we're moving away from co-occurring to multi-occurring. And that's making your point. Co kind of intimates as two. Multi, because the complexity for man and woman, but we're dealing with women in this conversation, of all of those things which change by day in relation to the cycle, the multi-occurring conditions are what we're absolutely looking to work with to get better outcomes. And nobody's thinking along those lines clinically.
It's prevention, right?
It's massive.
It's all about prevention.
It is. And, go back to you, your GP. How did you did you just go bypass the GP and go straight to a private clinician and just say, I need some help here and this is what I think it is?
So I actually had a very nice GP, a female GP who did listen, but I kind of went back to her and I said, I think it's ADHD. And she said, why do you think that? And I said, well, it's in my family and I think there's something else. And she did listen to me actually. But I said, I'm gonna go down the private route. And so got the diagnosis, went back to her and I said, I just want you to know that this is what the outcome is. and she was learning. She was like, oh, well, I don't really know very much about this. But going to what you were saying, you know, a dream of mine would be for a poster to be up on every GP's wall with a tick box of ask about this, check about disordered eating, check about sleep problems, check about hormonal things. And it would be, you know, have they got nails that have been bitten down? You know, little things. Are they tapping their foot? Are they twirling their hair? Are they restless? You know, little things that they can sort of just see that 8 minutes in the room. Can you almost do that scan of ADHD on a woman or a girl? And, you know, send them through that pathway, because we know, you know, the screening going on in prisons, through the criminal justice system now. It should be, it's cheap, it's easy, and it's not something that is going to take up a lot of time, because it is, you know what, it's a conversation that says, you know what, I suspect there could be some ADHD or some neurodivergence here. Have you ever considered that? And very likely that person will be like, yeah, but I'm not sure, and I'm not, you know. And then when you have that validation from a doctor, that's the biggest thing for people, is that, oh, I can do something.
Quietens the voices in the head.
What was the significant? I want to come back to disordered eating, because you've raised it twice quite rightly.
Yeah.
I want to come back to it. But whilst we're on the diagnosis, when you got yours, what was the impact for you at that moment then? What did it give you?
Yeah, it was genuinely like one of those moments in your life you just think, wow, okay. I ran into my husband. I've been on this Zoom call for about 2.5 hours. I couldn't even speak properly. And I said, it's ADHD. He went, oh, bloody finally. Like, he knew, because, you know, he understands my you know, and he's been there while I've been sobbing. I go, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Or the imposter syndrome, or why can't I just get this sorted? Or why can't I just tidy that drawer? Or, you know, all the little things that he's seen where my self-worth has been, you know, taking a knocking over and over. And my self-esteem was, you know, really rock bottom at this point, because I thought it was pretty useless. I thought I'm just not going to amount to anything, because I just can't consistently do things that I want to do.
So you ran into him.
And I ran into him, and he was like, okay. And then he sort of, you know, he's taken a bit of time to catch up, and me being me just went into sort of hyper focus. And I was like, I'm doing something about this. I've got 3 daughters. And then before I know it, I see all the different signs. I've got 4 kids, and they've all been diagnosed in different capacities. It shows up in 4 different ways with them. And that's it. And I'm just like, I'm on a mission, because the big part of me is, if I'm going to deal with this, I want to help other people as well. It's a really big, I've got a strong sense of advocacy and justice, that I'm not going to hold this for myself. This has to be shared. And, you know, the time that I've been doing all of this, you know, over the past 4 or 5 years, I have been getting messages, you know, hundreds and hundreds of messages going, you've saved my life, you've changed my life, this information I didn't know. I thought my husband and I were going to break up. I thought I was going to be on antidepressants for the rest of my life. You've helped me help my child. And I'm not doing it for the, you know, the recognition. I'm quite sort of, I get quite uncomfortable about that. It's more this is a disaster for women for generations. You know, women have not been supported,
not been seen, not been heard,
and not been helped.
There is a validation for you, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which, if you talk about your low self-esteem taking a knocking, you know, what have you, you've quite rightly tapped into something, and you're doing good, and there's no shame in being proud of what you're achieving. You should be proud of what you're achieving for yourself and other people.
Yeah, thank you.
You should be, because
especially from where you were.
Yeah,
you said pre-diagnosis. That
coming out of a darker place, and then where you are now, it's not dark, is it? It's
no. I mean, I literally could talk about this 24/7, and I do pretty much talk about it all the time, because I'm sure you guys have this, where you're at a party, you're at a friend's house, you're, you know, waiting for a kid to come out, and someone sort of idles up to me and says, oh, well, you know, I think I've got ADHD, or my kid's got ADHD, like, what do I do? Or
we don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
We don't go anywhere without that happening. And once you put your head above the parapet, as you've bravely done, it'll. And I normally wear branded clothing for ADHD 360, and yeah, it happens everywhere. But we need people to talk about it. We need people to bring about change. let's talk about the shame for a second. We're on a mission and a journey, both as ADHD 360 and as John and I with Beyond the Label, to remove the shame of having ADHD and change that narrative. Where were you with prior to and post diagnosis with shame?
Oh, I was deeply ashamed, deeply ashamed.
Of?
Coming out, talking about it, being stigmatized, the taboo. I really was embarrassed, and I thought, I don't want my husband's family to know. It took probably about 2 years to really talk about what I started doing. I wouldn't put it on any of my private social media. I'd create a social media, and I felt very guarded around it. There were certain people I didn't want following me. I was really embarrassed. I thought, this is gonna stigmatize me, and people are gonna think I'm some person that just can't sort their lives out. I mean, this is my narrative back then, and it's been a journey for me, you know. And I didn't come out and make this big announcement and go, yes, I'm so proud. I was very quietly working and working on myself. I was doing a huge amount of self-development work and therapy and coaching and everything for myself. But I could feel that shame that was very pervasive for me, to be sort of labelled with this ADHD kind of stigma, and I didn't want that for my kids. So it was, well, I need to break this for myself. I need to sort this out, you know, and start talking about it. And it was, I felt so vulnerable and exposed that people were going to think that, oh, we shouldn't really work with her, or, you know, maybe she's not someone that we can rely on because she's got ADHD or something. You know, I had this whole thing.
What changed for you though? Because you clearly flipped that narrative, and you know, you've already said, but also use Phil's word, validation. So many people outpouring, saying, you know, you're helping me, and clearly you could feel that you were helping people. Did that sort of affect and change how you then felt about that identity as well? Because I'm imagining people that are listening and watching you now for the first time, and then all the people you've already helped that are in some way shackled by their shame, and you sort of exude confidence now and liberation from what you're doing, and it's inspiring. And it's just like, how would you ripple that out to more people that can live a life that's more authentic?
Because I think the shame has always been there for people, you know, the shame about not being able to do things, or hiding or masking, or the RSD, you know, that's not even been, you know, especially in women, where that shows up in, you know, friendship issues, relationship issues, perfectionism, people pleasing, that impact alone, especially for women. The shame around that, the shame around so much. But what the diagnosis does is it helps create a distance between your whole persona. This is just like you. And okay, well, that's the ADHD, and we can work on that. We can learn about that. We can understand it. We can get help and coaching and support, and we can, you know, evolve as people. You know, we don't know what we don't know. So if we understand what RSD is, instead of us just being like, oh, overly sensitive and too emotional and all the things that we've been coined, we can understand how it shows up, what the triggers are, how we can sort of, you know, move out of that reactivity and, you know, take some breaths, become a bit more mindful. Like, there's so many different ways, which is one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because I knew that the book, we needed a daily help. We needed a toolkit to be able to, when that shows up or this shows up, what do I do? How do I help myself? So it's a journey, you know, the whole cliche of it, and it takes time, but it allows people to step, like, instead of it just being all-encompassing, like that's just you and you'll never change. And a lot of people have that mindset, oh, that's just me and I'm never going to change. I actually think the ADHD diagnosis helps you go, actually, there's so much I can do here. And I think it's quite liberating and empowering that this, you know, this is a new chapter of my life. And a lot of women feel like that. They just suddenly go, sod it. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do that thing. I want to try that thing. I want to change my career. It's
exhausting, masking and not living authentically. It catches up with you. Not just women. We spoke to Ore Odube earlier, who's just literally flipped his whole narrative all his life. He's been masking, been hiding. And he's hit his own bottom to have enough of that.
I think we've run out of time, which is incredibly sad. because there's a lot more to talk about. We never did get to disordered eating. We'll come back to that. What you've just said, to wrap it all up, I think is, my next question was going to be, which we haven't got time for, what would you be saying to the woman that's watching or listening to this that is 5 or 6 years behind your journey? Mm-hmm. I sense it is, don't be frightened of the journey, go on the journey. You will free yourself up, you will become more authentic and trust and know yourself a lot more, because that's exactly what's happened for you. Would that be fair?
I think so. I think the diagnosis is a key that unlocks that authentic version of you, which is what I do so much work on now. It's like you've got the key, we don't quite know where we're going, but at least you've got some form of unlocking, and it's okay to be who you are. Like you say, you know, we're not here to put on this mask and this persona to please other people. We're here to get the best out of our life. We're only here, you know, for this short period of time. Let's, you know, use our potential. Let's step into who we're here to be, and enjoy it, because so many people haven't been given that opportunity. And I really believe that when we unmask and we've given this freedom, the weight lifts, and the things like the disordered eating and the addiction and the depression and the anxiety, they start lifting as well, because we're not weighed down by something we don't understand. So we have understanding, we've got different routes to take, and you know, that's the mission of what I do, really.
Great strapline. The diagnosis is the key to the authentic life that you can lead. And I think that's a great way to end what has been an illuminating. Hats off to you. And I mean that, and I want that on camera. Hats off to you for having the tenacity to become your authentic self, but to also help lots of other women become their own version of their authentic self. Yeah, you should take a lot from that.
You've been so important to so many people, and so many of the people that I have even recently met or are coming through our sort of pipeline, if you like, to film with. And they're like, you've got to film with Kate. Oh, it's so good you're filming with Kate. Yeah. So I can tell them all now we've filmed.
We've filmed, we've done that. So thank you.
Because the book has got the strap line of that, which is not me kind of being like all like, you know, brandy. It's just because that was what, you know.
As if by magic.
Yes. It's embrace
your authentic self and harness your true potential.
And that's
great.
Literally what the book is for. Because it's just like peeling away, like let's understand the anxiety, your nervous system. We didn't talk about the nervous system, but all the things that we've struggled with. And then let's find like fulfillment and joy and simplifying your life and just making life feel easy again. And that is it. Women have gone through life feeling like everything is, you know, an effort. It's hard, like going uphill the whole time. And that is, you know, essentially what I hope to bring is just let women just have an easier life now that they understand their ADHD. Yeah. I think with the first generation, you know.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
Feels like a pioneer. Well done you.
Thank you. It was great to chat to you both.